Alright then, what's going on guys and girls? Welcome back to the GolfMagic channel and welcome back to another equipment review video. Before we get into today's session, if you are new around here, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below to get up to date with all our equipment reviews, challenges and much more going into the new year. Now today I bring you a very long anticipated video from Ping. If you have been watching any of the PGA or European Tour, you may have seen this in the shadows for some of their star players. Ping have released today the PING G425 range from metalwoods to irons. And what I'm going to do today is review the PING G425 driver. There are three variations of the PING G425 driver, which I'll get into in the technology section of this video. What I'm going to do today is review the PING G425 Max and the PING G425 LST. I'm going to put it through its paces on the launch monitor and talk to you just about how this is different from previous Ping models. This may be the best looking driver I've ever laid my eyes on. So without further ado, let me welcome you to the PING G425 range. So the PING G425 driver range. Let's talk about looks to begin with. I've got the G425 LST and the G425 Max in my hands today, and if you haven't been able to see from the previous pictures that have been leaked on the PGA and European Tour, these clubs are absolutely stunning. Ping have introduced a new colour palette of black and silver, which seems quite boring on first inspection, but what this club and what Ping have been trying to do is put forward stealth, confidence, versatility and just strength in a driver just by the looks alone. And I can say with utmost confidence that Ping have done that. This driver has a matte finish, and for me, someone who does really like that matte finish, this looks absolutely exceptional. Both drivers as well as the SFC look somewhat like a tour driver, but it doesn't just attest to the tour driver. The LST is obviously for the better players, but the Max and the SFT is definitely for the mid to high handicap player. I can see that the improvements that Ping have been made with these drivers is minimal, but for someone who loves Ping's ranges, it's pretty clear. What they've done to initially see from the club is that they have changed the weighting on every single range from the G425. There is just a different design and it looks like it's less movable, but in the technology section I'll explain why this isn't the case. They are all generational in that the Ping LST driver has a slightly smaller head in 445 cc's, whereas the Max is 460 cc's. In the design, when looking down at the club, you can see that they've changed the design slightly to make it slightly more of a rounder profile. And there's a few other things as well that I will mention. They've kept the turbulators in every single range, so the LST, the Max and the FFT, that were in the G410. Now I'm not surprised by that because they did significantly improve the aerodynamics, but what I am surprised about is they've made the crown indentations on the back of the club a little less strong, so they're not as noticeable, but they are still acting as alignment lines, and with the dragonfly structure as well in the club, it's quite obvious to see that there are vast improvements in comparison to the G410 and the G400 as well. It'll be interesting to see how this corresponds to the technology that they've introduced into this new range and how this revolutionises the new G range. I can see as well that there's adjustability in the hosel of the club as well as the weights that I've mentioned previously. This shows instantly to me that Ping have really just done well, and the continuation of the G410 range in that with these three models that they have, alongside the customization they have from the weighting and from the fine-tuning in the hosel, there's going to be a club and a model for absolutely everyone here. So from the initial inspection that I've got from the looks for these two drivers, I can't give anything else than top marks here, but maybe the technology is going to be a little bit different. Let's jump back home now and talk about the G425 range in the driver and the technology that they've put into it. What improvements do you think Ping can make to the amazing G410 range? Let's jump back to the studio. Okay. With the technology with a driver, and especially a driver like the new PING G425 range, I'm not going to mention the technology that's already been in the Ping driver from the G410 and G400 because unless it's an advancement, you're probably going to be pretty familiar with what's there. But the main things that Ping have improved with the G425 range is a higher inertia and a deeper CG in the club. And the main thing that leads to is more consistent and more forgiving shots all around the face, which leads to you hitting more fairways.
They're not essentially saying that it's going to go a lot further, but the main thing they're saying is they already had that with the previous ranges. What they've done here is make the club more consistent. As well as that, they've really branched out with the differences between the three models. Some models of various brands sometimes are pretty similar. The three models that Ping have here, although they are obviously included with other G410 and G400, these now make a big difference in terms of which one you pick. Leading on from what has been changed, let's talk about the inertia of the clubs. The main example I'm going to give is the G425 Max. Ping say that the G425 Max has 7% more inertia in comparison to the G410 Max. This is in hand to the new 26 gram adjustable weight that they have put in this new model. This is very different to the 20 gram and 16 gram in previous models. As well as this, I said in the look section that it looks like the adjustability may be a little more limited, that you can't move it about as much. This is true, but because it's heavier, the movements that you do are more incremental and they are more significant. So that if you do move it a little bit because it's a heavier weight, there'll be more impacts. The turbulators is included in the G410, so I won't talk about that too much, but obviously that improves the aerodynamics of the club. What has changed is the creased crown on the back of the club. Although this was in the G410, it has changed slightly, as mentioned in the look section, to be not as severe. It is still helpful, and with the Dragonfly structure, it adds up to an extremely strong club head. But what they've done is they've just decreased it a little bit, which means maybe more towards the look section. It's not as bad on the eye as it has been in previous models. Now let's talk about the difference between the three models, as I think this is really important if you're deciding to pick any sort of Ping driver for 2021. Previously, the differences between the three models weren't as much as they probably should be. For example, the LST model was only 200 RPM spin lower in the G410. For me, I don't feel like that's that much, it should be a bit more. And they've done that. Ping now say that the new G425 LST driver is between 500 to 700 RPMs lower than the G425 Max, which is incredible. They finally made a driver that is supposedly a proper low spinning bomber. The G425 Max isn't supposed to be a high spinning club, probably more about mid spinning, but the LST now seems to be a proper low spin club for those people who spin it a little bit too much, like me. As well as this, the CG shifter in the club head is 17 grams rather than 26 grams in the G425 Max, so a little bit of a difference there, and that kind of does make sense because you wouldn't want that much adjustability for a low spinning model, as it's probably more towards the tour players. Now going on to the SFT model, if you're not familiar with what the SFT model is, it basically is the G425 Max maxed out, and it's more alluded to the players that hit it right, so have that out twin swing path and have a bit of a slice. Previously in the Ping G410 model, the SFT model would go about 10 yards straighter. That's not bad, but if someone, let's say, has a massive banana slice, that's not going to help them that much. Ping now say the new SFT model will go 25 yards straighter or further left, which means that essentially the club face may be a little bit more closed, and the way in which they've improved the technology means that the people who have that out twin swing path, maybe a bit of a slower club head speed, this club's for you. I think it's really important to have those three distinct separations between club heads, because having three club heads that are quite similar, there's not really much point. You've kind of got three really proper categories that you have between these drivers now, and with that, before you even test them, you kind of do know which one you should be trying. For instance, I knew that I was going to be suited towards the Ping G425 LST. I still had that kind of inkling to try the G425 Max, and I know you guys really want to see how that one performs, so that's why I've tested these two today at Gray's Golf, at the driving range, and on the course for the last few months. Let's now jump back to the extremely cold southeast seafront, where I can give a little bit of a rundown as to how I got on with these two drivers on the launch monitor, and just how I got on with testing it at the range on the course for the last few months, as I hit these drivers a lot, more than any other driver I've tested. Let's go back there.
So how did these two clubs perform in the testing that I've done for them? Luckily enough, Ping were able to send me these a few months ago, so I've actually done rigorous testing with both the LST and the Max, on course and in the simulator. What I'm going to show you today is just a bit of experience that I've had on the range, at the simulator and on the course, and which one I think could be right for your game. First of all, let's jump into the G425 Max, as I feel like this is going to be the most popular amongst us amateur golfers. Now, in the technology section, I said that the Max is supposed to have about 500 to 700 more RPM spin than the LST, and that is exactly the case. From testing at Gray's Golf, I will put the data up on the screen now, and as you can see, I was getting pretty decent numbers overall, but when I'll show you the LST numbers, it's going to be about 500 to 700 RPM higher. That's not a problem at all, because what I found with this driver is it performs. In every single asset, it performs. I mentioned in the looks that it instills confidence and even a launch monitor. Well, I'm not necessarily that confident in a club. This, for me, yeah, it ticked all the boxes. I particularly don't like having that high spin of a club because I'm a low spin player, and this was getting around 2,700, which isn't a problem, and I think that it definitely ticks the boxes for people who need a little bit more spin, a little bit more forgiveness as well, and that's exactly what the Max is going for. With the 460cc head as well, I never felt like I was going to hit a bad shot. And when I did hit a bad shot, the technology they've put into this club means that I didn't really lose any ball speed or anything like that, which is exactly what you want in a club that is essentially an all-around driver. The only reason I wouldn't put this club in my bag is because it spins too much for my game. I did take it out on the course, and that is what I found, because playing in the South Coast, if you haven't been watching behind me, that it's pretty windy here, and it just would be a little bit too much spin with my launch angle as well. But what I found with this club for feel and performance is that I never really did miss a fairway. If I did, it was more of like a little bit short and right was my main miss, and that was because the spin rate flew up a little bit too much. Not a problem, but I would rather have that miss over the miss that I have with the LST, which I'll get onto in a second. The feel it impact, and what I will say is the sound as well is loud. I know the PING G410 has a loud noise as well. This amps up a little bit, and when I was playing on the range as well, that's when you could really hear it. And it almost had a few people looking over thinking, what is that driver? So yeah, it's quite an interesting one. Definitely don't think that's a negative at all with it being loud, and it's a very notable noise. So yeah, take with that what you will. The PING G425 driver for me is the exact driver that I think is an all-around hybrid. It can suit anyone who wants to have kind of mid to high spin with mid to high launch as well. And the customization that you can have with this driver, from the shaft options to the adjustability in the hosel and the weighting as well, means that whatever swing that you have, this could be the one for you. Obviously there are 3 options available, and I'll get onto the LST in a second, but definitely try this driver out if you're thinking that you want that kind of mid to high launch and mid spin as well. This club is forgiving, and I feel like it consistently performs for wherever you put a ball on the face. As I said, I have a pretty fast swing speed, and when I miss, I should miss quite far. I didn't really do this with that one. So yeah, for me, this is top marks. Now going on to the PING G425 LST, I do find it interesting that a lot of brands do now put out lower spin models, but what I've found in the future is that it wasn't really that different. It was about 100, 200 RPM, still notable, but not that much. This PING have stepped up here. They said in the technology section that it is 500 to 700 RPM lower, and I'll put the data up on the screen now that I've got at Grays Golf, and it is exactly that. This is a low spinning driver. This is finally one that I think I could put in my bag, and I never had a shot with this club that went over 3000 RPM. For me, that's exactly what I wanted, and what I did as well is this came in 9 degrees. I actually upped it to 10 degrees so I could get some higher launch, and this club went absolutely mild. As you can see, the average for this driver is the furthest I've ever had, as well as the ball speed. It's the furthest I've ever had with this driver, with any driver. It was exceptional. The one thing that I will say is that with it being an LST, a low spin driver, my misses were the problem with this one. If it was bad, it was a low duck hook left, and it would go quite far left. But for me, that didn't happen that often. That was more down to my swing being just a bit rubbish rather than the driver itself. And I feel like that having as a miss is just absolutely fine given the optimal results I'm getting from hitting it out the middle. Similar to the Max as well, when I was hitting it from anywhere at the club face, my spin rate and my ball speed was getting pretty consistent numbers, so it wasn't anything that negative. You could find that in other drivers, especially low spin tour models, that you would lose ball speed, you'd lose, maybe even you get an exceptional amount of RPM as well. This didn't have that at all. So for me, that was quite surprising. It really does attest to the technology that PING have put into both of these clubs. So I'm blown away with both of these clubs, mainly the LST, because this club, I'll say now, it has been put in my bag for the last few months. I played it on the course, most notably at the Tiger Woods video, a video where I was struggling with my back, with the wind, the rain, everything. And this club, I hit it straight down the middle of the fairway. So a great club, 2 great clubs, and I think these could definitely be in a lot of your bags very, very soon. Let's jump back home now so I can talk a little bit more about these clubs, give my final verdict from price, when they're coming out, and crown them with a certain type of medal for our GolfMagic ratings. I'm freezing cold here on the South Coast, so I hope you've enjoyed the backdrop that we have here today, but I'm a bit too cold now, so let's jump back to the studio where I can give my final verdict on these clubs.
So, final thoughts on the PING G425 range in the drivers. As you can probably tell by the majority of this video, I was pretty impressed by the G425 Max and the G425 LST. What I haven't mentioned is the price. These drivers come in an RRP of £450, which, to be honest, is on the high side. That is rivaling, not as expensive, that's rivaling the likes of Titleist and TaylorMade last year. It's hard to really give too much of an opinion on price because I do feel like this driver is really good, especially in 2021 with all the new releases coming out. So yes, it's on the steep side, but I do feel like with that price, the quality's there as well. So make your own mind up on that one. My final verdict on this range is that it's going to be very hard to beat this range for an all-around driver in 2021. For me, it ticks all the boxes for looks, new technology, and improvements for feel, which means the results that I had as well were spot on. Here at GolfMagic, we're going to give the PING G425 range for the drivers nothing else than a gold medal. For me, this is the best driver I've hit so far. I know there are a few releases coming out in the next few weeks, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But for me, from the testing that I've done for the last few months, this driver has topped any driver that I've hit so far. Will this change? Maybe, because as I said, there are a lot of new releases coming in the next few weeks, so there may be another driver or two that could top it. So keep your eyes peeled on the GolfMagic YouTube channel for future reviews. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you did, make sure you leave a like and comment down below what you think of the new PING G425 range in drivers. We are releasing more reviews on the fairway woods and irons, so if you guys are new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all the new PING releases coming out in the next few days. I'll see you guys at the next video.